so good being home. What's up, guys? Welcome to this week's episode of Guns and Cameras. Ah, crap, there's a mosquito in my coffee. Well, at least it's not a butterfly. Get out of there, dude. Anyway, you guys, I just got back from a 4-day work trip back east in Minnesota with a very cool brand, shooting some very cool content, and I'm excited to share that with you guys in the future. But we're not talking about that today. Today, we are talking about pirates, treasures, antique arms and armor, and weapons and all kinds of other cool stuff, and a little bit about cameras. I was stoked when I got home. I found this package from today's guest, and within the package, there was a 1200 to 1300 silver coin from the Crusade times. This is the coin that Crusader knights would have used to fund their voyages to the Holy Land back during the Crusades. It's super cool. Tokens of Valor is going to turn this into a pendant. It's going to be on my own personal pendant. I've been after this coin for a minute. So while I get into making this a reality and unpacking all and finishing my coffee before more mosquitoes get in there, you guys enjoy this week's episode of Guns and Cameras. Shooters, are you ready? Stand by. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Guns and Cameras podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Best, and today I'm stoked because we have a very special guest. He is really into coins and treasure. I guess you could say he's a pirate at heart. He's also a purveyor of rare relics and their stories. We have Mr. Josh Scott, aka Redbeard's Relics on Instagram, with us today. Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself.
What is going on, Josh? Well, we got two Joshes today. I'm stoked, man. They love the same kind of stuff. Well, my name's Josh. A lot of people call me Captain Redbeard, hence, the red beard. But I specialize in a very niche area of collecting and history. I like to say that I am kind of a little bit of a self-described expert when it comes to Spanish colonial period. So what does that mean? Well, as soon as the Spanish made their way over to the New World, to Central, South, and North America, that is kind of that period that I'm really into. So we're talking the kind of early to mid 1500s all the way up until about 1800. And what does that kind of encompass? Well, everything from coins to shipwreck treasure to flintlocks, arms and armor, maps, anything that has to do with that period of, the golden age of piracy. That's what I really pride myself on. And there's a lot of guys who are really into that stuff. So I like to, as I say, I'm a purveyor of rare relics and their stories. I like to acquire these items and show them off on Instagram. I've built quite a following around it because this is stuff that most people will never even see in a museum. And I'm learning about stuff every single day. And truly every year I see something I never knew existed. And now I'm getting to share those stories with you, with people who maybe their only experience with this kind of area was Pirates of the Caribbean. And hey, that's really what got me started and got interested in that whole time period. And now I'm physically dealing with these items that you can hold history in your hands, and it changes the game when you physically get to hold an item. So getting to share that with everyone, and I built a business around it. I started my page in 2020, really it was in December of 2020, so that was a rough year for everybody, and the couple years before that, I'd really started kind of building my business, and then when that happened, it kind of really shifted everything. We stopped going to trade shows. We started doing everything online. And how could I bring these stories and what I love to do to the masses? It really started with Instagram. And it's really helped me be able to tell those stories, bring really cool things to everyone's attention. And at the end of the day, I do want to sell stuff. I want to get people, be able to have treasures in their hands. But I'm going to tell you a story about it first, and then tell you it's for sale later. I'm not going to do a sleazy salesman pitch, but hey, if you like it as much as I do, you're probably going to want it. So it's easy as that.
Dude, that's awesome. So where did you grow up? What did you do when you were a kid? And when did the interest in this particular trade start to happen?
Yeah, well, I'm born and raised here in San Diego, California. Always been a Southern California guy. Grew up fishing, surfing. Competed nationally for sporting clays, for shotguns. So from a young age, I was really into everything outdoors. And you don't get a lot of that from Southern California. I mean, you might get fishing, you might get surfing, but the rest of that's not. Didn't know a lot of other guys doing it. So I did a lot of that with my dad and traveling around. A lot of fishing trips, a lot of hunting trips, things like that. So it really kind of my passion for that side of what I do started there. I've got my own personal arsenal at home of stuff that to go out and have fun with, and now it's grown into stuff that was made 300-400 years ago that I've gotten a lot more into, and honestly spend 10 times what you'd spend on a modern piece today on something that probably don't even want to shoot, but hey, it looks cool. Really started there, and for the coins, my grandfather was a coin collector. Started at when he left World War II. He got out of the Navy, got big into coin collecting. Then when my dad was born, they grew up going to the big coin show that was up in L.A. Called Long Beach Expo that had been going on for 60 something years. So they grew up going to that, and then myself, I started going to that. So it really, for the collecting, started with coins, baseball cards, stuff like that, and then it started growing into, well, I'm not as interested in the U.S. coins as much as what resonates for me is the history surrounding the golden age of piracy. So I started diving into that, and then I said, well, if I got the coins, what else can I own from that period? And then it just opened it up. I met my business partner through that back in 2018. Which we can go into later, but that's kind of where it all started for me. So now, I met my wife during 2020, right about the time I started my Instagram page. Now we have a beautiful little girl, so I'm hoping to...
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, she I have a 1-year-old now. She just turned a year, so I'm just, stacking up as much treasures that I can and putting stuff aside for her to hopefully get her excited about history and kind of what I do now. So it's good stuff.
That's awesome. So you started collecting when you were a kid.
I did, yeah.
That's
awesome. And it really was that, like a lot of us, especially the millennials, we kind of grew up around Pokemon cards, sports cards collecting. It wasn't so much coins, but I loved that tangible feeling of, this is real silver, this is treasure, that whole idea of it, and it blossomed from there.
So what was your first kind of, I mean, you kind of covered it because it sounded like your family is collector of coins, but
yeah.
Do you remember that moment when you, what is it? There's that line going back to Pirates of the Caribbean, right? You're completely obsessed with treasure, right? So it's in your blood, right? So when was that moment for you that you kind of gained that obsession?
I think it really started as a kid getting my first metal detector and going down to the beach and finding pocket change. But as a kid, you say, oh my gosh, I just found a quarter on the beach. That's treasure. And at the time, that's, especially even back in the 90s, you find a quarter, you're like, hey, you find a handful of those, that's actually was worth something. And so that's really where it started. And then, for at least, fast forwarding, into when I was into my 20s, then that's when I first got my first piece of actual Spanish silver, which, that I still have it today. I'll never sell it, and it's a 4 real, so it's the second largest coin they made in Mexico in the mid 1600s. It's not the greatest coin, it's nothing fancy, but it's real Spanish silver, and it's just that I got hooked, and I don't know, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars since.
Well, it's hard to explain to people who maybe aren't really into it at all. It's like when you can hold a piece of history, really, right? Like, I don't know. It blows my mind every time. I think I got hooked. My dad, I remember when I was a kid, he had bought like a whole bunch of 1800s gold American coins, right? Like U.S. coins from, they're like $10. He had a $5, a $10, a whole bunch of $20, like double eagle. And I remember as a kid touching those and being like, man, these things were like, it was cool that it was gold, right? That's cool. But the fact that they were made and probably carried around by people, a couple hundred years ago just blew my mind. And then being able to find it, dude, I get it. It's huge.
It is.
So,
It's life
so
changing.
right, yeah, I don't, yeah, I get the obsession, right? So when in 2020, like, what were you doing before you kind of started Redbeard's Relics, and then what was kind of gave you the idea that hey, I could do this full time?
Yeah, so leading up to that time, I did a number of things. I was on multiple trajectories to do different things. Leading up to that time, I had my own business. I did 3D imaging and scanning through using these cameras called Matterport that allows you to convert any physical space into a 3D dimensions, virtual tours. I did drone operating, did all that stuff, and it came at a great time when there wasn't a lot of physical contact, and I worked with the insurance companies. I worked with realtors on all sides, doing all sorts of that stuff, and it really helped people be able to get a physical walkthrough what they were interested in. So I did a lot of that work. I've become a third generation contractor, so I had done a lot in that field with construction, but it just none of that was really my passion. Even before that, I was working for a major distillery called Cutwater Spirits. If you've ever had any of their stuff, they do a lot of like those canned cocktails. I was lining up to become one of their sales, moving up to Northern California and doing a whole district up there and running all that, and I loved it, but I had other opportunities come up, and when 2020 hit, kind of everything was shifting. The work with the 3D scanning was sporadic, but come through in huge waves. But I wanted something else to keep me busy and to be really fun. And my wife and I were just dating at the time. I was like, I got to start something. I love these coins, and I had met my business partner just a couple years prior, and we were still acquaintances, but I was buying a lot of stuff from him. And when that hit, I said, I can make this into a full business. There's only a couple guys that I had known at the time who were doing this on a large scale, more than just being a coin dealer. It was a focus on Spanish colonial. And I had met a guy who was doing it. He's pretty successful on Instagram. We don't talk much anymore, but he was doing that whole thing. I said, I can do that, and I want to do it my way. I think I can make this even bigger. And I did. I started with one follower, and I just, my wife was my first follower, and from there, just like, let's go. And now I'm coming up on 108,000, and we're no signs of stopping. So,
Dude, that's so awesome. So when you first started dating your now wife, what was the conversation of like, hey, by the way, I'm like super into pirate stuff?
Well, she was super supportive because, she loved a lot of the same stuff that I did.
Sweet.
I'm big into, quote unquote nerdy stuff. I'm really big into all of that and history. I'm a huge history geek, and she fully embraced it. She's like, you have the voice for it, you have the appearance, you can make this into something really exciting. So I said, I'm going to go for it. And she just said, I'll support you in any way you possibly need. Let's go for it full force. So, and we've been doing it ever since.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, holy smokes. So 2020, you're starting out, you have already your collection, but what was kind of like your business model, or how did you start to kind of be like, hey, how do I take all of the stuff that I've collected over the years and then turn that into a business that's going to yield some revenue for you?
Yeah, so what starts it off is you need to do research. So that was the biggest thing I got from my now business partner. At the time, I had just, I found him online, realized, oh my gosh, he lives 20-30 minutes away from me. How can I learn more about this? So he spoke into me from the get-go. He said, look, there's a lot of people who are going to get in your way, and they're going to be gatekeeping this whole industry. Guys have been doing this for 30, 40, 50 years who do not want more competition. So how are you going to be better than them? You need to do all the research you can, get as much knowledge as you possibly can, so that way you can outsmart them. Like, these guys are going to be dying off by the time that you're rocking and rolling. They're going to be gone, and their collections will disperse amongst the masses. So how do you get in now to then also get all this business coming forward? Because at the time, just getting started, I had put in about 10 grand into just scooping up material over the course of a year. And I was just buying stuff that, I had just done a little research online. I went to my local coin shop. They happened to have some stuff, lower grade pieces. But for me, I was like, this is what I got to start with. You got to start somewhere. And the best advice I got was buy the best for the money that you have at the time. Don't just buy cheap junk, because that stuff doesn't really appreciate. And then buy more books than you buy inventory until you have all the books that you really need. Then go hog wild. But for me, my library of auction catalogs of books I've got books that are dating back to the 1800s that have never been reprinted, that are talking about coins that I never knew existed. I love stuff with a skull and crossbones on it. So I went down a huge rabbit hole of pieces all the way back to the 1500s that show that stuff, but there hasn't been a book that's been redone on that topic since the 1820s in France. So I'm having to go find those books, and doing all the research for the Spanish colonial stuff. How do you know something's fake or real? What's the difference? And then I have a mental checklist when I go through ever buying something. I rarely buy sight unseen unless I really trust who I'm buying it from. So how do I navigate that? And buying with confidence that this is going to be a real piece, knowing what the market's going at, because now everything has gone about 3 to 4 times. It's gone up 3 to 4 times from what I was buying them in 2018. Once 2020 hit, it changed the game for collectibles across the board. Whether you were collecting sports cards, I'm sure people were into Pokemon, sports cards, all that. Anything PSA graded has gone through the roof. It's insane. I worked for PCGS for quite a while, and that is it's under the same net as PSA. That company is like almost $1 billion company, and they didn't start off at that. And so 2020 and on changed the game for collectibles. So I have seen returns. I can't buy the stuff that I sold. For example, a two escudo, a gold doubloon. That's actually what a doubloon is a two escudo. And I'll show you some examples later. But if you had one of those, I was buying them for $1,000-$1,500 all day long. Now I can't get them for less than $3,000. And that's like the lower grade stuff. If you want the higher grade stuff, that's $4 or $5 grand. If it's from a shipwreck, $6 to $10 grand. So, and I was paying way less than that back then. So it was buying smart. I spent every dime that I could extra to get that stuff. I held it, and then a lot of it I sell at the biggest treasure auctions. There's a few big name ones that are out there every year. And so that's really where it started for me, was doing the research, finding out what I wanted, because there's so many different coin types that were minted, so many weird little varieties. You could go down a rabbit hole on every mint in the New World versus the Old World and get lost in it. But doing the research first, buying smart, seeing everything that's out there. I never buy on eBay. A lot of guys do. That's not for me. There's a lot of fakes on there. I got burned early on, and I'll never make that mistake again. But you gotta fail to as a learning experience at some point. But what I always tell people is do the research first. Buy all the books you can. You'll spend a few grand just on the books or more. I have one book that retail, they stopped printing it. It's $3,000 for the book, if you can even find one. They're not out there. The one will pop up on Amazon sometimes, and it's like $3 grand. And so I have one that I didn't pay that much, but I still paid over $1,000 for it. But it's comprehensive, so it really comes down to that. I got very fortunate by meeting my business partner early on, and he really took me under his wing and really told me, like, you need to do the research first, learn all you can, and then nobody's going to get in your way. And the people who have, I circumvent them every time. And I try to make more friends than enemies, because, hey, if you can kill them with kindness, you're going to win every time.
Dude, 100%. I agree with that completely. So do you think that, because I'm trying to think, like, 2020 hits, everything goes crazy. I mean, obviously, industry. I don't know that we'll ever go back to the way it was before 2020, but that's one of the questions I have for you. But do you think that the consumable market, or collectible market, I should say, kind of exploded because people were looking for creative ways to move their dollars out of cash and into investment opportunities, kind of like what happened with the art industry, right? Where all of a sudden it's not about the art, it's more about the name and the value, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that is kind of partly what spiked the collectible market? And then do you see in forecasting in the next couple of years, do you think it's going to slow down, or do you think it's only going to increase?
Well, the trend for the last 5 years has it's been full steam ahead, all gas, no brakes, just everything is just going through the roof. From some of the lower end stuff all the way higher end. And I'll just speak specifically to my side of things because that's at least where I'm seeing the most drastic changes. Where I will say things have slowed down is the generic stuff. So the generic types of these coins. What I mean by that is the more readily available pieces. You see pillar dollars is what, the typically we call, people will see as an 8 real. It's typically the first book the coin you'll see in the red book of United States coinage. It is the Bible of the coin world for collecting in the United States for coins. It is a coin that United States based the dollar after. We got the dollar sign from the pillars with the wrapping of the plus ultra ribbons around them. That's where we get the dollar sign from. So there's millions of those out there in the market, and all different degree of condition and toning. Some of them are really pretty, some of them are junk. So I've seen a lot of that stuff kind of just not dip, but just it's stagnant. It's just kind of keeping where it's going. We have outliers, really pretty stuff that'll go in rarities that'll break that, but for the most part it has not slowed down. The only thing that has affected it is now scarcity, because it was very well available prior to 2020, and now after that everybody started scooping it up. All these collectors were like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing these numbers are going through the roof. Auction comps are showing us things that we never saw before, and the sky's the limit. Now, the only thing that would change that is, for what I do, is the recovery of a new massive shipwreck and that dumping into the market. That will immediately make whatever those items are, those coins, that'll make the entire market essentially fold and will course correct. Great example. The largest treasure galleon in the history of the Spanish fleet was sunk by the British off of Colombia, and I believe it was 1708, and it was right off Cartagena, and it sunk with the equivalent of about 17 to 20 billion dollars in gold, and it's just sitting down there. And they've got footage. You'll have to look it up. It's the wreck of the San Jose, and there are literal size of pancakes gold discs, and they're about 2 inches thick. And just massive, the size of plates, and you'll see it. The whole galleon is still preserved at that depth. It's so far down there, you have to send a submarine to go look at it. But there's a whole dispute on it. We might never see it. They might bring it up, and it would be really cool if they did. I would love to see that stuff. It's mostly Lima gold, Colombian gold, stuff like that. So that's really the only thing that would affect what I'm doing right now. But the interest is there, the hype is there. And the other thing that we have really that's going to actually help it continue to go up is more films, more things in keeping the interest alive. So they're talking about the next Pirates of the Caribbean film. As soon as that comes out, suddenly people are more interested in pirates again. Yeah. And so that helps me more than anything, because people want to get a real piece of pirate treasure. Well, I can give you something from the period. I can't necessarily give you an actual piece of pirate owned, but here's something that would have been used during that time. So,
dude, even just talking about it makes me want to just sell everything and go just search for shipwrecks, dude.
Dude, trust me, it's the most fun thing in the entire world. Getting to make that dream come alive.
Yeah, I know we talked about it before. I'm like, dude, I'm serious. I think you want to co-produce an actual pirate film. I think that'd be dope.
Well, piggybacking off of that, my business partner Sean Rich, if you've ever watched shows like Pawn Stars, or there was a show on National Geographic called Lords of War, stuff like that, he was on, for about 100 and something episodes of Pawn Stars. He's one of their experts who'd come in for Antique Arms and Armor. He's my business partner. We do everything together, and he provided all the arms and armor for Pirates of the Caribbean. For not the first film. The first film was all reproductions. Everything after that was real.
No way, really? I didn't know that.
Every single sword, every single gun, unless the swords are being hit together, they were all real. And he still owns all of them. He just rented them to Disney.
That's
so
insane.
I've got to physically hold Captain Jack Sparrow's swords, his guns. He owns all that stuff. The coolest piece, actually, more than Jack Sparrow's sword, is the one that they gave Keith Richards. He got to pick his sword. It is stamped from the East India Company, and the handle is made of a human femur.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Dude.
It's a $300,000 sword. It is dated to the 1680s, and it has a human femur. It was tested as the handle.
Dude, that's amazing.
Yeah, crazy stuff. So at some point, we'll have to get Sean on here to show you some of that stuff and talk with you more about that. But
100%, I would lose my
that's
mind.
what we do.
Dude, that's amazing. So how do you, oh man, I have so many questions. So going from, everything we just covered with the change in the markets and stuff, because there's always going to be this, perceived value. Like, so say somebody's a collector, or they're just starting, right? And they look at an escudo, right? There's the gold value, and then there's the historic value. How on par, right? I mean, right now gold is crazy too, right? But how close are you, or what's the kind of the split between the historic value of a coin from the 1500s and the gold value?
Yeah, so we step into the world of numismatics, and if you've never heard the term numismatics before, sorry, there's a chopper flying overhead. I live in a very a large military city, so we have a lot of test flights all the time. So when I say the word numismatics, if you've never heard that, that is the art or the hobby of collecting monetary items. So whether that's banknotes or coins or tokens, things like that, metals, that is all encompassed into numismatics. I'm a numismatist. It's a mouthful, but at the simple breakdown of it, I'm a historian and a coin collector. So the melt value, yeah, it's going to have a certain, just right there you have value. So let's just, for an example, take the largest gold coin that was regularly circulated or used by the Spanish at the time. We have the 8 escudo. Now, the 8 escudo is, the equivalent of about an ounce. It's a little bit less an ounce of gold than what's today, but they're not pure gold. So they couldn't get it 24 karat. They couldn't get it 100% pure. Like today you go buy a gold bar. Let's say you go to Costco and you buy a 1 ounce gold bar, or you go on AppMex or any of these big companies that sell bullion. That stuff is like 999 pure. It's like almost 100% pure. Well, today we can do that through multiple refining techniques. Back then, as close as they could get is 22 karat. So you have little impurities like, traces of copper and nickel and zinc, things like that were naturally forming at the time within the metals process. So because of that, you will get slight toning. The copper will help tone it. You'll get these gold that will go from just a yellow to like a brownish color. Sometimes you'll get a little different shades, and that's all from the purities of metal. So take it right there. The melt value of an 8 escudo, let's just call it an ounce, is not going to give you what you see on a gold tracker today for 24 karat. You'll have to go to the 22 karat. So it'll be a bit less than, let's say, gold today is at $3,400 an ounce. Take it down a notch. Let's just, for argument's sake, say it's $3,000 an ounce. You have $3,000 just in the melt value. Now, if that coin, that 8 escudo, was never on a shipwreck, let's say it's also from a period that it's a less desirable. So anything after 1715 is typically, it's still desirable, but everybody wants one from the 1715 shipwreck fleet that sunk off the east coast of Florida in 1715. So a flotilla of, I think it was 12 ships, and almost all of them, I think one got away. All of the other ones went down in the storm. But it was millions and millions of dollars of gold and silver that sprayed across the ocean in very shallow water. And to this day, you can still metal detect and find pieces, emeralds, coins. People find rosaries. They find sword hilts, things like that all the time. You can find them on the beach still to this day. But if it was from that wreck, take that melt value and times it by 10 or 12.
Dang.
That's about what they go for. I just sold one the other day from the wreck. It was an escudo from Lima that was minted in 1712. That coin sold for $25,000. So that's how much the premium you're talking. Now, if it was never on a wreck and it was later, let's say it was from the 1730s, never on a wreck, maybe somebody found it metal detecting somewhere, just for what it is, it'll still be much more than its melt value. That will probably be in that 8 to 12,000 range. So you're still looking at significant value. And you're talking historical, you're talking numismatic. Once things get also encapsulated and graded by a third-party grading company, like PCGS or NGC, then now you can see a numerical grade that'll go into that. Now you can see if it's comparing how high does it rank. Is this the finest coin that's ever been graded for the type and year? That's going to have a premium. That's what we call finest known or top pop. And something like that adds another value. So there's so many little things. Now, if you have provenance, this was part of a hoard. In recent years, there was a hoard that was found, I think it was in Kentucky or Tennessee. They found hoard of hundreds of gold coins that was from the Civil War that Confederates stashed in a field, and some guy found them in a field, found tons of them. And so if you have a tie to that, suddenly there's provenance and there's a story. That always adds value. So there's a lot that goes into it, but it's way more than the gold value, which is cool. Now, that's not the same about U.S. coins, though. With the gold market today, if you had a $20 gold piece, let's say it was from, the 1880s, and it's not really exceptionally perfect, it's worth its weight in gold. So, which has kind of hurt the numismatic realm in that aspect for U.S. collectors. Your very high-graded coin might not be worth more than its melt value anymore, which sucks because gold has gone so much. In the past, when gold was around $1,000 an ounce, those coins were actually worth closer to $3,000, and woohoo, you've got a great coin. But they've seen collectors in that market have seen it tanking, and it's horrible. But I know a lot of dealers who will buy those historic pieces of gold and just melt them because it is worth more that they're melted at the time. It's horrible, but it happens every day.
Dude. Yeah, I'm kicking myself, man, because I'm finally old enough where I can start to afford some of the things I want to collect. Like I've always been into making jewelry, wearing jewelry, making jewelry, collecting things, big time collector. But by the time I could afford to start buying the stuff, all of a sudden the metals values are going through the roofs, right? Like I'm like, man, if I had started, buying up some metals just for stock, like when I was 20 or 18, kicking myself, man, because here
same.
I'm
like, why was I going out with my buddies to bars and restaurants and stuff during college? I should have been putting gold and silver away.
Dude, I know. If I could go back in time, that'd be the thing I would tell myself. Be like, take your money and go buy metals because it's going to be huge. So, holy smokes. Real quick, what's the story behind how you got connected to Sean?
Yeah, so it's funny enough, my dad and I wanted to start doing this business together, and we said, well, we need to source some material, and we want to get some more do some more research. And just from a stroke of luck, we had happened, my dad and I got together, we were doing some business planning, and then we just had dinner, and we were turn on the TV and look and see it was an episode of Pawn Stars, and we saw Sean on there, and he was in so many of the early episodes that it was just a rerun. But he was talking about stuff, and my dad was like, I'm gonna look this guy up. Like, I wonder where he lives. Sure enough, he lives in San Diego, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I would have thought he lived in Vegas, like where most people think most of those experts are there. Most of them don't live in Vegas. They all live elsewhere. But I was like, oh my gosh, let's look him up. And we looked his name. Then I found his business, Tortuga Trading. Then I said, oh my gosh, he's got his phone number here. I'm going to call him. So we called him up. And we were like, hey, this is who I am. I found I'm really big into collecting this stuff and just getting started. We live in the same city. Is there any way to get together? Like, I'm not a weirdo. Here's my dad even had sent him his like business contact. He's like, here's all our stuff. We would love to buy some things if you want to meet at a restaurant or something. Would love to, get to know you and buy stuff. And he's like, no, come over to my house. And I'm like, okay. So we went to his house, and the first time I met him, I felt a little starstruck. I was like, I'm meeting somebody who was on TV. Like, sure. That's super cool. And, he welcomed us in. He had all his dogs were there, met his wife. We got to chat and just sat down at his kitchen table. And he had literally blown my mind by putting hundreds of shipwreck 8 reals, pieces of 8, on the table, swords, pistols. He had a treasure chest out. He literally wanted to just blow my mind from the get-go. Rum bottles from a shipwreck still encrusted in coral. And he said, what do you want? How much would you like? And he couldn't have been nicer. I still have a photo of the first day we all met and chatted together. And I think I spent $10,000 in one sitting. And he told me, he's like, the bigger the pile, the bigger the discount. However much you want to pack in here, I'll tell you what everything is retail priced, and then I will knock it all down from there. I got about $20,000 worth of value for 10 grand, and I ended up kicking off my business from right there. I sold all of that stuff within, I don't know, a month, and I came back to him like, Sean, I'm ready for more. Like, let's go. And I kept buying coins, and then he sold me my first flintlock pistol. And I'll probably never sell it, but it is one of the most extravagant pistols you've ever seen. And I'll show you when we talk about some guns, if you want to talk about some guns here in a bit. But I figured the name of the podcast, we had to get into a little bit of guns. So
I got some questions here. We're gonna get.
But that is where it started, and ever since then, he's taken me under his wing. I feel beyond grateful for the blessing of getting to know him, to know his family, to he came to my wedding. We spend time. I talk to him every other day. We go into the workshop together, and we call it Resurrecting the Dead, because we bring old flintlocks that are completely destroyed, or you would think it's not worth it. And within about 6 to 8 hours, I can bring something that looked like a pile of parts into a piece that looks like it was made yesterday with the right patina, and it still functions. We could go to the range and go fire it.
Dude.
So, and there's only a handful of people who are left who can do that, who even care to do that in the U.S. So I'm that next generation, and I want to get people stoked on it too. So
I just want to come hang out with you.
Hey, dude, the invitation is always open.
All right.
And we will crack a couple beers, or if you want to open some real good rum, and then we'll just go into the workshop, and I'll let you put your hands on some real blunderbusses if you want to have flintlock rifles or muskets, and see the real stuff.
Say no more. I'm taking you up on that for sure. So
please.
That's insane.
Please, man.
Oh my gosh, yeah, all of that stuff I'm so pumped about, because so this goes back after we talk about this a little bit. We'll get into the gun stuff and all the antique stuff, because that's going to be a huge part too. But I think that there is, for me especially, I have worked in the digital space for forever, right? So it's everything I make, whether it's like a video, taking a photo, or doing whatever, it's all digital, pixel dust, right? And that's not my passion, man. I like working with my hands, making stuff with my hands. Again, the jewelry, whether it's carpentry, again, the obsession with how things were made for me as a kid was huge, right? And going back to, again, treasure, these things that, the idea that you could make something 500 years ago, right? And have it get sunk to the bottom of the ocean, and then be brought up 500 years later, and then restored to functionality. I mean, they don't make stuff like that anymore, right? And they were made by, hand tools. Very, like, people were very intelligent, right? Ancient man, hyper intelligent. But to be able to, again, touch, see, feel, touch, that kind of stuff just blows my mind. So for you, real quick, we'll talk about this and then we'll move on to the cool stuff, is that the world of, we live in a digital world, but then there's the analog stuff. So what are some of your thoughts on where our current like manufacturing processes are versus handling and using things made from years past?
Yeah, well, I will say this: it's significantly faster these days. With the art of, we've seen this explosion in the last decade of CNC machines and 3D printing in metal, and the accuracy. I mean, they're printing parts for engines of jets with metal 3D printing, and they're so accurate. I mean, you no longer have to, nothing is hardly made by hand anymore. And on one hand, I can respect the art. I think 3D printing of stuff is super cool. The ingenuity of it, it's neat, it's fast, but there's no soul in it. And I'm not going to ever knock anybody whose business or their life is around their CNC builds and they do crazy stuff. I've seen unbelievable stuff in the firearm industry on that side, stuff that's getting made from CNC machines. It is so cool. And that is an art in and of itself. But for me, doing it the old school way, stuff that is built to last, that somebody spent 100 hours of their own hands to make it just right. And even then, not 100% perfect, and that's what I love about this stuff. There is that human error that you can get something 98% right, but that extra 2% of that extra feel, that only comes from a human's touch of being able to, everything that's been sanded down, everything that's been hammered out in iron. When I see these treasure chests that I've got that were made in the early 1600s that work, with no springs, with just torsion and motion, and you see them move like a clock, all in one motion. Every one of those parts was done by the light of the sun or by candlelight. And so how you got all that done, and how they figured it out, it just blows my mind to this day. I have high respect for things that are made today by all the genius that came into doing that. But the craft of doing it back then, for stuff that has not failed for 400 or 500 years, even going back into the ancient stuff, I've handled a lot of ancient swords from like the Scythian Empire and the Greeks and Romans. You see that stuff that is still holding out to this day. Like, I just can't get over it, man.
Dude,
it's hard to replicate today.
Oh yeah, you can't. I always thought a cool superpower would be to be able to pick up an item, right, and then see all the different hands that touched it, like in all the different stories. Because I think that's the thing that sucks me in, is the history of it again, right? Like, again, a sword with a freaking human femur as a handle. I mean, even just the creation of that sword, right? Somebody's like,
how did that happen,
right? Where'd you get the femur?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Whose femur is it? That's
right.
Somebody's freaking bone. Like, that person lived and died somewhere and then got turned into a sword hilt.
Yeah.
Like, what the frick?
I mean, hey, I've told my wife, like, if you don't turn my bones into some kind of like holy relic or something, or turn me into a sword and let it be I'll be very disappointed.
Right? Make me into something cool when I die, right? Like,
seriously. I'll just throw my dust to the wind.
Man, no kidding. Wow. So crazy. All right. On that note, let's get into some of the, so first off, how do you source this stuff? I know it's probably trade secrets, right? But like, what is the process of finding whether it's a treasure chest or a blunderbuss or a cutlass or a coins? Like, how do you find this stuff, and what's the process of tracking it down and then purchasing it for resale?
Yeah, it's a very long process. It's a lot of research. I had to get basically the crash course from Sean up on when it came to the arms and armor. That stuff was a whole new world to me. I'm still learning as much as I possibly can about that. So in that respect, it was finding the right auction houses first. There's quite a few that specialize in that. Now you have the big name auction houses like Heritage, that is the largest auction house in the US and quickly could become the largest in the world. But they have some stuff, but it's kind of just it's not specialized. You'll get a whole bunch of everything else you see there. So finding the auction houses that specialize in it. However, the caveat to that is, one, they will have the stuff that you're looking for, but they will also have the most expensive stuff that you're looking for. You know, one of my favorite all-time pieces, it's after the flintlock era, but it's a Lamat. It's it's one of those pistols that almost looks like it's something out of like a futuristic game or like a steampunk thing. You've got a shotgun barrel underneath the main pistol barrel. If you ever look up a Lamat, it is the coolest gun, but even in the worst condition, they're $10,000. And so I've seen examples that are near pristine, and you'll spend 50 grand on one. So I have yet to purchase one because I don't want to spend 10 grand on something that's completely like has that rust tone on it. I want something that looks really nice, but I don't want to spend 30, 40, 50 grand on it. So doing your research to find out where prices are at, that was a huge thing. So when I'm sourcing items like treasure chests, first off, you have to think, where were these things made? Typically, the ironwork stuff was all done in Germany. The German manufacturers in Nuremberg and Augsburg. Some stuff was done in Munich, but mostly in those two areas. Some in Frankfurt. You see a lot of that never left there. And the treasure chests, we call them that just because it's pretty typical. They were used to transport. The Spanish bought a lot of these chests because they were so heavy. Most of them weigh 100 to 250 pounds empty. So you would fill them up with gold and silver. Suddenly you have a chest that weighs like 400-500 pounds that only can be moved by horseback, or 5-6 guys will have to get this thing up into a cart or take it somewhere, and they would bolt these things to the deck of a ship. A lot of them have two holes on the bottom so they could bolt them. So if the ship was rocking, suddenly you don't have a wrecking ball blast through the ship, kill everybody in its way, and fly off the boat, and you lost all your silver. So stuff like that, learning about the history, the background, why were these Armada chests, who was using them, where could they have ended up, coming from a time where there were no banks. Banks did not exist. It was only by your wealth, how you could secure it, and where it was from. These chests were typically taken care of. They left in castles. So if they never left, where can I find them? So to bring it all back around, you asked, where do I source this stuff? I go to the countries that never, that made them, or they never left. So that comes with new challenges and a lot of problems, because if you've got to get something like that out of Portugal, Spain, France, Germany, Luxembourg, places like that, or Switzerland and Italy, they all come with their own issues of exporting. So one, you got to make sure, are they going to consider this a national treasure or a cultural relic? Like, it's a nightmare getting stuff out of Romania, which I've gotten things out of there. They just have to approve that it can leave, because they're very tight on their cultural relics. Same with Greece. No Greek coin or artifact can leave the country. If it does, it's gotten out, by other means.
Questionable.
So anything you see out there, either they have let it go in a previous time and now it just circulates, but if you bring it back to some of these countries, it ain't leaving. So you have to be very careful with that. With the treasure chests, just as a great example, these Armada chests are so heavy that they have to be shipped, typically freight, or sometimes they'll send them by plane, but it can be expensive. Others, they put them on a cargo ship and they send them over, and then you have to get it shipped, from let's say, comes from Portugal, it'll typically go to port in New York, and then you have to get it from New York to California. Well, my prized chest that I'll probably never sell, it's extremely ornate. It's got bluing like you'd see on a gun all on the inner plates. It's got still remnants of the wax seal on it.
No way.
From the 1600s, like all of this intricacy. It cost me $1,200 to ship this thing, and I paid $3,000 for the chest at the time. So these costs add up quickly, and now it's gone up even more. You add all these tariffs that are currently going on. They tack that fees on there. And don't even get me started. Some countries are a pain to even ship it. France hates shipping stuff to the U.S., so they'll charge you 5 times what it costs to ship it from Germany, just because, it's going to the United States. They give you the finger. I could be shipping a coin that shouldn't cost more than 30, 40 euros to ship it. They'll charge me 200.
Dude,
It's ridiculous, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you got to factor all this into when you're sourcing things. The other thing that I have found is I've started making friends in those countries who will then ship it for me and, pay them a fee to pick it up. But even with that, it'll be, I'm still saving money. I'll pay them, hey, I'll give you pay you for your time to pick it up and ship it for me. But it is just a whole game. So you got to be prepared for that. It is a nightmare. Sometimes you'll wait months or years. We just dealt with Sean having to wait 2 years to get a flintlock out of London because London and all their gun laws, even though these things are not meant to be fired, and it was all in parts, it was still a quote-unquote gun to them, and you have to have an export license, and you have to deal with freight, and you have to have a customs broker when it gets to the United States, and you have to pick it up from the airport, and all of these things that come into play, that it's not just, I'm going to buy it online, and it's going to show up. It is a whole thing. So if you're not prepared to pay, $700-800 in fees and shipping and stuff, that's why the things cost as much as they do. You're not going to get a blunderbuss from me for $1,000 because I can't even buy it at auction for that, let alone all the fees that come into even getting it into the U.S. So it is a game to play. Everybody knows it in that industry. So when you see the price of something, you got to understand of everything that comes into it. My time of hunting it down, then getting it, shipping it, dealing with all taxes, tariffs, and fees, and then restoring it, all the time that goes into that, and now for full functionality, you know where it goes. So that is a glimpse into the world of what I go through every single week to find stuff to bring it to market. It is a lot.
It's a good view from up here. I bet you I could plot a really kick-butt trick-or-treating map and hit all the right houses. I am pretty sure that one right there is gonna have the full-size candy bars. I can almost guarantee it. You guys, we are halfway through this week's episode of Guns and Cameras, and that means it's time for me to tell you it's been brought to you by 1156 Productions and by Tokens of Valor. Tokens of Valor is my boutique ballistic jewelry company where I take things like brass and copper from bullets and I turn them into one-of-a-kind, hand-forged, wearable works of art in sterling silver and sometimes gold, although gold is hella expensive, so that rarely happens these days. But I digress. If you are interested in having something made for you, go to @TokensOfValor on Instagram, subscribe, send me a DM, and we'll get something started for you. Also, I'm working on the website. That'll make things a heck of a lot easier, and an Etsy page, which makes it even easier on top of that. So stay tuned for more info on that. Speaking of websites, gunsandcameras.io is going to be your main hub and source for all things related to the Guns and Cameras podcast. That includes information about upcoming episodes. That includes patches and stickers and merchandise and sweatshirts and t-shirts and all that other kind of stuff. It's also your hub and portal for getting entered into the Guns and Camera Awards for 2025 or the GCAs. It is a peer-reviewed, based on the quality of work contest for content creators in our industry. I'm talking the gun industry, the defense industry, hunting, fishing, anything that gets throttled on Instagram. This is your spot to enter your work, to get it peer-reviewed, maybe win a super dope limited edition challenge coin in either gold, silver, or bronze, and compete for the top spot, photographer of the year, videographer of the year, etc. First entry for everybody is free. Additional entries, there's a little bit fee, but that's just going into covering the cost of the awards. If you're interested, be sure to go check that out, gunsandcameras.io. If you buy something, thank you. You're the bomb. I appreciate you. This is getting longer and longer and longer, but we're halfway through this week's episode with Josh Scott, aka Captain Redbeard, aka @Redbeard's Relics. Josh is awesome. I love this guy. We have so much in common. I love history. I love treasure. I really, really love treasure. And he does too. If you're interested in picking up something from Josh, go to @Redbeard's Relics on Instagram, subscribe. From there, go to his website. Here's the address. This is where you can see all of the cool antiques and relics that he has assembled that is for sale. And you can maybe pick something up from him. I'm sure he would appreciate it. But while I continue to map out my route for trick-or-treating this Halloween, you guys enjoy the rest of this week's episode of Guns and Cameras, starting right now. I mean, it makes sense. So do you have like relationships with the salvage guys? Like people are still going after wrecks? Like how big is this industry still? Like are there certain crews or companies that are just out there looking for wrecks? Because I've heard, like there was somewhere I read that was like the number of undiscovered wrecks and treasure ships are still like it's a large number.
It's staggering.
Yeah.
Because most of these wrecks, let's take it back into the early 1700s, late 1600s, early 1700s. Spain is, at war with England. It is a tumultuous time, but Spain is producing more silver and gold than anyone on Earth. And they found the largest silver mine in the world at the time in Bolivia, in a town called Potosi. Mm-hmm. And that they were producing some staggering number, like 1 million pounds of silver a year. It was just unreal. And how much of that was lost along the way, who knows? They had to pack it onto llamas and alpacas, get them down to the coast, take it up to Panama, then take donkey trains across the Panamanian peninsula there over to over to Portobello, and then over to it was just so much of it was lost along the way just to get it back to Spain. Go to Cuba, go up the coast of Florida and back to Spain. So much of that was lost. Ships were going down of all shapes and sizes, from all different countries. Whether you were a merchant, you were a galleon, whether from any country, they were sinking all the time. And most of them we never will hear about. And most of them weren't these big treasure ships. They were just your merchant vessel that were packed with the treasures that you don't hear about today. Mm-hmm. Silks, fine linens, perishable goods, spices. Those are the things that were trading for so much more once they made it back to the New World, because just think alone, citrus, they didn't have that in Europe. So getting stuff like that back to there, and the dyes and things that were, the West Indies, the things that they were getting kind of similar in India and the South Pacific, they were getting over there. They were still kind of trying to get all that together and bring it back to Spain, because the whole goal was all the coins they minted in the New World was to be melted down back in Spain and made into mainland Spain coinage. Mm-hmm. So all these ships were sinking all over the world. Who knows how many are out in the middle of the Atlantic that we can't even get to. Tons of stuff was gone. So there's a lot out there. The ones who are salvaging, I do have relationships with a few of them. When it comes to Florida, you have to have a permit. It is nigh impossible to get one unless you have had one for years and it's been grandfathered in and passed down the line. Florida has a whole thing that I like to say, they have a game they play. Mm-hmm. There's a point system. Say you found a ton of gold and silver coins, and you found a bunch of other cool artifacts. Every single piece that is there is, depending on what it is given a point system. So the state of Florida gets to take their cut first. They review everything that was taken. They take up to what the state allows them, or they have their permitted. We're going to take this much for the Florida collection, which, to be honest, most of it's not in a museum. You're not going to see anywhere. It just disappears. There's a vault somewhere that very few people ever get to see, and stuff goes missing. That's a whole another story. But I know the guys who are pulling stuff up. I can buy directly from when they get there. They call it getting division. So at the end of the season, they get to do all their salvage throughout the summer, and then wait to get everything back. They get things back with all the dive tags and everything's documented. Then the crews, the people on the you can buy your pieces that were found, and then it's divvied up, and then they can sell it to me, with certificates, and everything's authenticated. So it's a lot, a lot of work. The 1715 fleet sites are still producing gold and silver quite a bit. But there hasn't been anything quite like in the 80s when they found the Atocha off the Florida Keys. 500 million plus worth of gold and silver was flooded the market, and those have still appreciated in value. So I do have relationships with a lot of divers, a lot of guys who are regularly in it. But yeah, it's a whole thing. It's not easy to get this stuff, and it ain't cheap.
Wild, man. Gone are the days of the small government, less regulation, being able to go find a treasure and be like, yo, I got treasure. Everybody wants a piece of the treasure if you find it these days.
Everybody wants a piece.
Crazy. Blows my mind. And yet, I'm still like, yo, let's go hunt for treasure.
I know.
You know what I mean?
It's totally fine if you find it on the beach, you find it on land.
Pick it up, put it in the pocket.
That's right. But if it hits that water and you get caught, you're going to be hanging out in the jail cell for a long time.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. All right. Let's get into some of
Yes,
your collection, man. So what is
absolutely.
first off, what do you got on hand to show, and what are the stories behind these pieces?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start off with something that we just finished restoring, and so this little box that I have here has been restored. This is what we'd call a cased traveling pistol, and inside it has the original,
Yo.
basically the padding in here, and it kind of looks like a potato sack. But what this is, it's fully restored, and I don't advise to go out and take these to shoot, but you could if you know what you're doing. This is a French travel pistol, made in France, sometime in the mid to late 1700s. It is very small. I mean,
Yeah.
in hand, you can see it is just about the size of my hand.
Yep.
These were very popular, this style, this size, at the time because you could easily conceal them. Then later, this style became very popular, what we call like gamblers or, ladies of the night, courtesans would keep them, that typical thing you could hide it easily.
It's like a precursor to a Derringer.
Yeah, and the caliber is bigger than 50, so
Dang.
you're
Yeah,
getting a
that
ball shot that will that'll end your day. But what is so neat is it has all this hand inlay silver wire all along it, silver encrusted, has some gold leaf accents here. Just beautiful little piece, and it even comes with shaped like a bird, a powder flask,
Little powder
and
flask.
the entirety of this was painted with a single hair paintbrush of
No.
a scene of a couple, a man and woman on
kidding.
horseback with gold leaf. At the other side is 3 individuals, and the bottom, it looks like a bird. It's got an eye and a little beak.
No kidding.
It's every little piece was all ornate and
Very.
had such care that went into it. So you would have something like this if you were traveling about, personal protection. But the next piece will go up in size. This is one I just finished restoring. This is out of Germany. This is about the 1730s to 1750s. Much bigger bore.
Yep.
Beautiful example. Both sides. It's all original. Only thing that I did is I had to clean up some of the brass. It was very crusty and dirty, and I don't polish anything unless it is, to save it, to save the piece, but just super neat. I love the style. They even added at some point a brass front sight, but it just feels good in the hand, and I didn't have to do too much restoration. Nice relief on there as well. They carved into these things. Just the fact that this thing is 300 years old, just about, and it still functions. We could go out to the range and go do this right now.
Dude.
Then to take it up for a notch from there, this is the kind of piece that you would have seen just after. I mean, it looks just like the ones used during the Revolutionary War, but this piece was made just after. This is a British Light Dragoons flintlock pistol. Enormous caliber. This thing is very large. It has all the proof marks. It was made at the Tower of London. It's got the mark for King George III there. It's heavy, but this is what you would have seen. The style variations just a couple iterations before this. You would have seen this, though, in the War of 1812, during the Napoleonic Wars. This is what an officer would carry. Would have 1 to 2 of these on them. And, man, once you run out of shot, this will crack your head open real easy. But this still functions. We did a full restoration. I got this out of the Netherlands, and just wonderful example. And I didn't want to bring it up to look exactly how it was made, because you could do a lot of work to make this look shiny, brand new, but it's telling the story, leaving it in the patina that it is, to me means more than anything. I would only bring that to brand new if it had to match everything else that was with the piece, or if it was in catastrophic need of restoration. But aside from that, I always leave the love and the patina, because this looks so cool on my desk when you
Dude.
have something like that.
No kidding. That's insane.
Yeah.
So what about what do you have, like, so I mean, it's so weird to see kind of the evolution, like with most of what I do for content creation, it's
Yeah.
all around modern firearms, right? So the stuff that we're doing now, and the holsters and the kydex and all that stuff. So something like that, right? Do they have leather holsters for those that they would?
Yeah, so it would be a two-part thing. So some of them actually would have a belt hook or a clip that would go right here, and I will show you because I actually have an example on a blunderbuss.
Sweet.
But this could go, and you would either put it on your belt, and it would clip right in. It's just a long clip, about yay long, and it would clip right on. The other thing is on a lot of the horses, you would have on either side. On the saddle, there'd be, they call them, holster pistols. So you would see pretty much throughout the early 1700s, you'd have these long barreled pistols that you would put in each holster. They were really long, well over a foot long. To fit the flintlock pistols would go in. But when you're in the heat of battle, or this one wasn't a sea service. The sea service pistols are even larger than this. You would typically tie a rope around the butt of either one of those pistols and hang it over your neck. So that way then you could take it as you're running and gunning, or you have a cutlass in one hand and maybe you already have one in the other hand. You could take your shot, drop it, take those off. Now you have two more shots. Put it around your head and go to the next one. We have examples of the sea service pistol boxes. They're extremely rare, but they hold about 8 flintlocks, 6 to 8. They would all be in there. So the officers would go into their quarters, open that up, grab all the pieces out, and load them up real fast and go. And so that's how you would have them. You would have them tied and hanging around your neck, because nobody walked around with a holster for the flintlocks. That was just for your horses, but you would hang them around your neck. And so we get stories like with Blackbeard. As a pirate, he had a custom holster setup made on his chest, and he had small pistols similar to the one I showed you, a little different design, but had 8 to 10 of them all down his chest. And you're thinking these ball shots are about 50 caliber, so in size. So you're firing, boom, boom, take the next shot, to the next shot. So at that time, the more shots you could get off, the better, and you'd be more deadly. So it doesn't matter if it was a small piece. That's actually preferred. You could carry so many on you and still have your sword. Take one, take a shot, either drop it or put it back in and go to the next. It was genius. But a lot of guys would just take 4 or 5 pistols and hang them with a rope around their neck so they would be ready to go, or take it off, hand it to their buddy so he could go and do it. It was a lot. It was a really cool image to kind of see that, and there are paintings that exist from that period that even show that. So
that's cool. I think that's something that we just are so far removed from that historically that it's just like trying to, and that makes sense why having swords and bayonets were so important, because once the shot was gone, like so quickly, I can imagine in a battle, right, you're going to exhaust those 8, 9, 10, however many pistols you can carry pretty quickly, and you don't necessarily have time to reload, so you're going to have to go to hand to hand, right? Like
exactly
different time, man. Wild.
Yeah, and there was just so many things could go wrong. People think, you hear like, okay, well, if your powder's wet, it's not going to work. Well, the other thing you had to worry about is the humidity. If the humidity was so dense and the air is so wet and thick, that powder might not go off. If you put too much powder in there, it might blow up in your hand. If you don't put enough in the pan, it might not go off. And you have somebody running at you, you take a shot and it doesn't go, or you wait till somebody takes it and it doesn't go off. It clicks, makes a spark. You're like, huh? And you go to look at it, and then it delay fires and goes into your buddy. There's so much that could go wrong if you're not ready with it. And now you've got somebody screaming, running at you with 2 swords. You got to think quickly what to do. And then on top of that, these things are not accurate. They're all of these are smooth bore, and they at the time thought the longer the barrel, the more accurate it's going to be. Not the case. And if you're on a ship and you're rocking and roaring, or not, and you're on the land and there's cannons firing past you, horses whizzing by, the accuracy is such a short range.
Brutal.
So there's a lot that goes into the mind when you start looking at these things, that they're a tool, but you could be the most accurate marksman, but the ball shot could still miss your target.
Yep.
So
yeah, I love it. One of my favorite movies is Master and Commander.
Same.
Yeah, love it. I watched that movie probably 100 times in my lifetime, if not more, just because I love it. I think they did such a good job with that. But yeah, war was messy, man.
It was.
I mean, it still is, but even more so back then. Like Civil War,
Oh, yeah.
talking about caliber, size of bullets, it was like, man, you get shot anywhere, you're gonna be game over, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, and you look at the French at the time were using the same size pistol ball as in the muskets, or I should say the musket ball was the pistol. You have a 76 caliber ball getting fired out of both your pistol and your musket, so that way you could have the same shot for the same piece. I mean, you get hit with one of those, the chances you're not going to survive is extremely high. Yeah. So, and I've fired both when we go out to the range, and I mean, not only does that thing kick like a horse, but imagine taking a shot that's like the size of like a pinball at you. It's just horrific to think about. Yeah.
No thanks.
So it really puts you back in that time period. And if we get to go out to the range and you get to put a few of these down range, it's going to ignite so much excitement to get to fire that. It's different going and shooting modern pieces. Like, that's super fun. But you go and do something like this that maybe hasn't been fired in 200-300 years. Ooh, gives you chills.
Dude, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. All right. So what is your favorite piece that you found? And then do you have like a white whale? What is something that you're trying to chase down or you're still looking for?
Yeah, well, favorite piece is a tie right now for. I'll stick to the guns. I've got a lot of really coins I just love. I have, some of the finest known examples from different periods during the Spanish rule across, the New and Old World that are they look like they were made yesterday. They're immaculate.
Crazy.
Some of those are wonderful, but this has got to be my favorite right now for pistols. Whoa. This is a completely silver encrusted with red coral flintlock pistol. No. All of this is silver. This dark, like bluing almost, like patterning down here. It's called niello. It's a type of acid etching that they did in the Ottoman Empire. They did in a lot of other places. It's got gold leaf engraving all over the top, known as kafkari. And the entire end of the barrel is wrapped in silver. It's so ornate with all of these hand put in little pieces of silver. I have two of these. This one's a little bit more ornate than the other. I'm still trying to find the exact match for this one. It's got to exist somewhere. But this came out of a museum in Turkey, and it was in their collection for, I think, the better part of 100 years has been there as just an example, and then they put it in a crate and it was left in storage. And my business partner, Sean, he gets called by museums when they're trying to raise funds and just want to liquidate stuff. So he gets to go behind the scenes and crack open crates, and they say, okay, we just need to get rid of stuff and tell us what you can pay for it.
I want his job, dude. That's
what I'm saying. So we get the first pick of a lot of this stuff. So this was, at least for what the story goes, this was used by a Barbary Coast pirate. So pirates that raided the north coast of Africa would do elaborate, beautiful designs just like this. Mm-hmm. We've had long guns from the late 1700s, early 1800s that are completely covered in silver. You see no wood whatsoever. We just sold one the other day for $15,000, and it was just immaculate. This thing is kind of floats around in that like 6,000 to 10,000 range, but just immaculate. I mean, if I'll send you close-up pictures of something like this, but it's all etched. This was somebody's personal pistol. It could have been a pirate captain's pistol. And if you ever look into the history of Barbary Coast pirates, they raided for centuries. And there's so much evil, so much like capturing of treasure that, who knows where that all ended up. This survived that. And it ended up in a museum. We fully cleaned it up. It was black. The whole thing was black, tarnished silver. It's fully restored. Now, this other piece, I have never seen another one like it, and most people have never seen another one like it. I've only seen examples in a couple museums, old backlog catalogs, but nothing like this is on display. So you're going to get to see this firsthand. This is a frogmouth blunderbuss. You see how this barrel is more oval in shape?
Uh-huh.
It's not round like your typical blunderbuss. It's so that you get a spread pattern that's more horizontal, so you could hit a lot of people in one go. But what's so weird about it, the barrel is half iron, half brass.
Huh.
So the end is brass, which typically you don't ever see. It's one or the other. And here you have the belt hook. So
Yep.
this would have clipped right onto something.
Dude.
But what makes this so spectacular? Right here, it's got a button. It's got a folding stock on a freaking blunderbuss.
No kidding.
Like, come on, man! Like, I've never seen anything like that. And
Holy crap!
this is likely French or Italian make. There's examples from both countries, but this places this in the latter part of the 1700s, and it still works.
No way.
It's really cool. So you can imagine you are a stagecoach driver, and you're going long distances with maybe a train of people that are like a nobleman, or taking goods from one place to another. You're a merchant, and you need to have your bodyguard have something like this. Because can you imagine some bandits come up behind you and homeboy takes this thing out, and you could fire anything out of a blunderbuss.
Bro, I can just see it. He's probably sitting up there on the coach, looks over at the driver and goes, check this out. I just got this the other day. Folds it, clicks the stock back in, right? Gets the flint ready to go and just turns around and, oh, jeez.
This would ruin your day, because not only could you typically would fire small lead pellets, BBs, out of this thing, if whatever you had on hand, you fill this with nails, fill this with glass or rocks, pack it in as much powder as you fill this thing up with. You put a good amount of pressure. Oh man, this is going to ruin someone's day from close range. So if they all jumped you, this is crowd control at its finest, and the level of detail of all this work on here. We went through and meticulously took this entire thing apart, restored it just enough to where we left all the patina. I didn't want to go too crazy, but it is functional. It is fully restored, and it's nice and snug. So it's exactly how it should have looked.
That's amazing.
And what's neat is it's even got a little hook down here, so you could put a strap on this thing.
Dude, so if you've never seen another one like it, you think somebody came in and like had that commissioned?
Most likely. Well, I have seen other examples like in books. I've never seen another one for sale.
Crazy.
But it's so obscure that somebody probably, they did that for transport reasons. They probably would fit easily in a trunk. Maybe it was too long for their trunk. They said, hey, they went to a local blacksmith or gunsmith and said, can you make this so we can make this smaller, because I still want to take this with me. And a lot of coaches then too, you would have the seat that they would sit on the front could open up, and it would be storage. So if there was maybe some tools, I see, I've had the chance of buying some horse-drawn carriage jacks, like, so you could do like a crank handle, so we could, if you had to replace the wheel, so they'd keep parts in there. And imagine hiding that thing under there, or in the seats, or in a case in the carriage. You say, hey, bust that thing out. We got guys behind us.
Thanks.
Pull that out. Hang out the back, and now you got a scatter gun that's going to take everybody out.
Dude.
It's so cool. Find another one. I find myself saying that all the time. Find another one. I've never seen anything like it to buy, except for this one. I bought it in Prague. It was a obscure dealer who dealt in a bunch of like European related, weaponry. So I had to have it. It was bad condition, but it's in wonderful now. So that's probably the coolest thing I picked up in the last 6 months. So
that's awesome. I love seeing, again, going to the evolution of technology. I love seeing how you can look at a blunder, just like, for example, the shape of the stock, right, where the hand is supposed to grab, and the cheek well and all that stuff. It's like all of that has still kind of carried on. It's not like you've had a huge change in design. That's why I love some of the old Colt stuff, or the old Winchester stuff, where it's like that design was done in the early mid to late 1800s, but it was such an efficient design that it's just continued to be like that action is still in use today by modern firearm makers.
Yeah,
because it can't really be improved upon. And that came out of a mind of a guy that, wasn't college educated, wasn't, just kind of learned how to do it and came up with that innovation, and it just stuck.
Yeah. Well, for me, like for modern firearms, my all-time favorite will always be the 1911. And look, for over 100 years, you haven't had to change anything. It is such a perfect piece of engineering.
Yep.
I love it. And even to the revolvers going back, like the best of the Old West for me is always going to be a Winchester lever action. I've got one. I love firing them. They are so cool. That is quintessential technology. How they even figured out how to do that, beside me, but we handle guns that go all the way back. We do a lot of wheel locks that are way even more complicated in the flints. So getting to kind of keep that history of firearms all the way up until today and seeing how things have gone, it's so cool. It's something that it should be taught more of, and seeing the evolution of that kind of technology. It's really cool.
Oh yeah, you get a better appreciation of where we are and where we're going based off of where we've been, which I love.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
what's your white whale? What's the thing you're still hunting down? Like, what do you got?
So the thing I'm still hunting down. I had one of them within my grasp, and I just didn't have the money to buy it. I got to put my hands on an actual letter. There was a gentleman named Woodes Rogers. If you've ever seen a show called Black Sails, it was a really good show on Stars. It's basically the precursor to Treasure Island, and you could see everything, Captain Flint and Long John Silver and that whole thing. Well, in the last couple seasons, you're introduced to a character named Woodes Rogers, who was sent by the British to the Bahamas and to be the new governor, and became the first governor of the Bahamas for a time, and then became, the whole thing that they show in there is real. His debts get called in, he gets sent to debtor's prison, and that's ultimately where he dies. Well, I had the chance, and I did a video on it, a couple years ago. It was a $30,000 letter that he physically wrote from jail in England to the king, asking for, and I don't know how this letter got out, but it was verified, and I physically held it. It was real. It even had a wax seal still on it. But this letter was describing how pirates are a problem raiding up and down the coast, and how much more important the Bahama Islands are than the American colonies, and how sugar plantations can be cultivated here so much more easily, and we need to build a massive fort here to protect this trade route. We can also defend against the Spanish. The letter was dated to 1720, and I was just like, I have to have this. Like, it had his name on it. It was gone before I could get the money to upfront for something like that. But so that's one of my white whales. The other one that, is a dream that I'll probably never be able to get, because I don't think they'll ever sell them. But there's a shipwreck in Cape Cod, and it is known as the Whydah, spelled Whydah, and that is the only proven pirate shipwreck with remains. That they have a museum with all the treasure on it. It was run by a captain who was known as Black Sam Bellamy, and he was basically a young guy, he in his mid-20s, who started off, in England, was on a slaving vessel that ended up, through a course of events, taking control of that ship, freeing everyone on there, and giving them the option, hey, do you want to be pirates and raid? They said sure. So they all became pirates, and they freed slaves. They took anybody who wanted to become part of the crew, and everyone got a fair, equal share. They were part of one of the pirate crews that raided the Spanish treasure fleet when the Spaniards were on the beach trying to salvage as much as they could. So most of the treasure off that shipwreck is from the 1715 fleet. They have extremely rare Lima 8 escudos dated 1715 in the museum. They have the cannons. They found the ship's bell, so they know exactly that's the wreck. It went down in a storm in Cape Cod. And so that's one of my grails, is to have a 1715 dated 8 escudo, so the largest gold coin that was circulating around then, the big cross on the back with the castles and lions. They have a couple examples in their museum. That would be a holy grail. But if they ever sold one with the provenance of being an actual piece that pirates held, that coin could go $100,000 to $200,000. It's or more, for the right buyer. So that's my holy grail. My white whale is chasing something like that. Fortunately, I know the guys who salvage it regularly. The head diver. So I'm hoping to go out there to Massachusetts next year. We're trying to plan a film session to go out there and get behind the scenes and see the conservation lab.
I know a guy that can shoot that, and
that's what I'm saying,
dude. I've got buddies that live out that way, so I would, dude. Sign me up. I will go.
I got you.
All right.
Because we've already got the invitation to go behind the scenes and go see that stuff. So, and that is real confirmed pirate treasure.
Oh yeah, dude.
Everything else is just Spanish, but this is pirates held this, and getting to see all. Dude, it's okay. So cool.
Yeah,
so
no joke.
That's
dude,
what I'm
Josh,
chasing.
I'm serious though.
All right.
Call me, please.
Because we're doing a trip in May of next year. We're going to Brimfield, Massachusetts, and if anyone listening is from, that area, this is like the event for antiques, for vintage stuff, and it's where my business partner has sourced flintlocks of pistols, muskets, treasure chests, swords, all that stuff. Most of that never left that part of the country. From that's some of the richest history for ever since the Revolutionary War and all the way back into the late 1600s. So there's a lot of that. So we source parts, stuff, because we can't reproduce a lot of the stuff that we need. So we have to go, it's like Frankenstein's workshop,
Yep.
Putting all that together. So we will be doing that and then driving over to Cape Cod and going to do that. So could be a really fun little trip. So I'll let you know.
Oh yeah, please keep me in the loop, because I would be down. I would super be down. What do you think, just out of curiosity, because I know, again, I'm a media background kind of guy, right? And so a lot of it, I get story and having to make things happen. I'm just curious what your take is on this whole History Channel's like Oak Island thing that they've been doing for forever.
Yeah. Well, what I will say is that, and I've talked to my business partner, I've talked to a few other guys who actually were part of the show, like were brought on as consultants and stuff. On one hand, yes, there's been human habitation on that island for a very long time, and they found a lot of stuff. In my personal opinion, I don't think that there's a treasure that's buried hundreds of feet below that island. Now, I do believe there could be treasure on that island, and in that area. I'm intrigued by the concept of, Knights Templar making their way across the Atlantic to go there. There is evidence of, stuff like that. A lot of guys who escaped Europe and heard tales of, the Vikings that made their way to Newfoundland in the northeast of the U.S. There's always that possibility that could have happened, but there hasn't been enough stuff found, to really make me think that there's all the stuff that is like proposed. The production companies inflate a lot of stuff to say, oh, what rare relic of history could Shakespeare's lost writings be buried 100 feet below some island in Newfoundland? I don't know. There is some truth to there's stuff there. There's really strange things that they found there.
Yep.
It's hard for me to say. I'm not physically there. I'm not physically seeing what is not shown on TV.
True.
They've been doing that show for a lot of seasons now, and they show enough to keep you coming back.
Dude. Yeah, it's good editing. My buddies and I turned it into a drinking game. It was said for every time the voiceover guy says, "Could it be that this thing was?" You have to take a shot. Because it's like, there's a lot of, because I agree with you completely. I think there's a lot of weird stuff that they put on that show that I'm like, that's weird that is there. That's weird that's there. But I don't know I don't think they're going to have their national treasure moment where they dig down and they find this giant treasure vault or whatever. I don't think that'll ever happen.
Yeah, the other side of that is I know that those guys are involved with several other sites. I know from talking to a couple of my guys in the shipper community, I know that they are involved with something they found off the Florida coast, further north than the 1715 fleet, but they found a shipwreck that has stuff aboard, like quite a bit, but they can't touch it.
Yeah.
They can't do anything because Florida, the powers that be that are in that department are shutting everybody down as much as they can. They don't want anybody salvaging anything, and they just say, like, no, you can't do it, and no giving good reason.
I mean, this kind of goes. This is the thing that is so fascinating to me, right? is, I mean, it's such a complex industry because you have like just the desire for wanting to go find treasure, right? But then there's
Yeah.
also the economic impact. Like for example, that wreck that you said they've got discs of, 2-inch thick discs of, gold at the bottom of the ocean. There is also like the, global economic implications of just the gold value of introducing that type of. I mean, I'm sure it's, again, going back to control and regulation, they have a handle on it. But like for case in point, if somebody was to go salvage and come up with, a couple 100,000 pounds of gold discs and all of a sudden be like, let's flood the market with a whole bunch of gold, that's going to cause economic instability in the gold market because all of a sudden now you have so much more gold, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, the biggest thing it would affect is the collectibles market and everything within that realm. Now, we also, so the funny thing, that wreck was found by a U.S. company that does a lot of salvage. And then the Colombian government parked their navy on top of it and said, get lost. And Spain says, that's ours, dating back 300 years, so you have to give us everything that's there. And Colombia's like, well, you got most of that gold from all enslaving the Colombian native Colombian people to mine the gold, and from all these other places.
Yeah.
So they're like, that's going to be ours. We're going to build a museum and put it all there. But, there's a lot of corruption that's involved with any time any of these big, somebody's going to get paid off to get stuff. So my hope is that some of this hits the market, but probably it never will.
Isn't that so wild how that's still like that comes into play, right? So crazy. Yeah. It just boggles my mind. It's like that story of one of the U-boats that they brought up, or a guy going back to his house in Germany that he fled and breaking open a wall and being like, hey, all the stuff I stashed back there is still there. Like, that's his stuff. He put it there. He owned it. And then the government comes in and goes, oh, it's because of where they set the date for historical artifacts. They're like, oh, those are actually, they belong in the museum. And they come and take all this stuff. And he's like, but that was my ring that I stashed under my bunk of the U-boat before it sank. Like,
right.
It's so wild how, dude, it blows my mind. But again, that's why I'm obsessed with this stuff, is all the weird, crazy stories. Again, being able to pick something up like that pistol you have.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, this could have been a pirate captain's. Actually, it's pretty verifiable that it could have been a pirate's captain. Who knows how many guys got shot by that pistol, right?
Right. That's where my brain goes.
Right? It's like, dang. Like, just boggles my mind. All right, Josh, we're coming up on an hour and a half. I don't want to keep you too long, but I do have one question that I ask the majority of my guests. That's the oh shit moment question. We all have them. They could be good, could be bad. But what is yours?
Oh man, that's a good question. I would probably say, I'll give you two. The bad one that ended up, I fixed it, but was taking a $10,000 blunderbuss that was just a gorgeous piece, and Sean gave it to me. My business partner gave it to me to sell, and I typically don't dry fire anything, but I needed to make sure that it worked, that the mechanism would. That I could cock it all the way back and that it would, test, because the person who was interested in buying it wanted it. As soon as I did, and in a safe environment, and checked everything, wasn't loaded, the hammer snapped in half and it went flying. And I was like, literally my heart sunk. I was like, this is a $10,000 gun, and I just broke it, and I was freaking out. And so I literally, you do what you got to do. I called my partner and I said, hey, I messed up, and he just laughed and he said, oh, don't worry, I got about 200 more of those pieces. We'll just swap it out. He's like, we'll restore it a little bit. It's an interchangeable part. There was nothing custom about this specific piece, so I literally I thought I was gonna die. I was like, he's never gonna want to talk to me again. This is done. The good one was I had a moment where I bought an Ada Scudo that was a unbelievable coin, extremely rare variety, Lima, beautiful piece. I ended up paying nobody really knew what it was at this auction. Obscure auction. It was in Europe. I won't say which one it is because I still get good stuff from it. But it I bought it for $6,000, which is a phenomenal deal. I sold that for 35 grand. It was one of those moments where I was like, I just hit a home run. I can die now. Like, this is the greatest thing I've done so far, profit wise. Because I knew what it was. I did my research. I got it sold, and the customer was like, I've been looking for this for ages. They never come to market.
Dude.
When I got it graded, there were only 2 other examples known, and this was the finest of the 3. So that was my biggest moment. So, and since then I've had lots of other little moments, and I get them all the time. But now it's just I'm just focusing on growing what I'm doing. YouTube is our biggest thing, and I'm getting a lot of those little moments when we're getting new items in to show off on that. So,
dude, that's awesome. I love it. Well, dude, Josh, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast. Real quick, any remarks or encouragement for somebody who's thinking about becoming a collector of rare relics? Coins?
Absolutely. If you're just getting started or you don't even know where to start, I would say start with an area of history that really interests you. If you're like me and you really like pirates or that era of history and things that are going around at that time, you're really going to want to narrow down, do you want to do coins? Do you want to do artifacts or maps? Or do you want swords, firearms, stuff like that? Once you really can narrow it down, then look at your wallet. How much do you have to start with? Within that, you'll start being able to see, what can I start with to get that going? Because I'll tell you what, when I bought this first coin, this Mexico 4 real, this piece of 4, when I bought this piece, I spent $125 on this. And it is worth more than 50 grand to me, because this is the first piece I ever got, and I'll pass this down to my daughter to be able to get her excited about it, and I'll never sell it. It ain't worth that. It's probably only worth $150 now, but I'll just never sell it. So find the piece that you can, and like I tell everybody, buy the best that you can with the money that you've got. If you have $100, I can show you a handful of coins right now that you can get started with that collection. If you're looking for more something in the realm of antique arms and armor, just know it's going to be a little bit more expensive. So going down that road, it's, you got to have realistic expectations. But I would say this: do your research, figure out where you want to go, because it's very hard. I know. I love so many areas. I also collect rare maps and also stuff related to Lord of the Rings. I've got 2 of the first maps ever widely produced that are that were first editions that were made in England.
No way.
Back in 1969.
All right.
So
now I'm coming for sure to visit you, because
you'll have to see it. One of them's a mint condition, first printing. The other one, it's got a little bit of damage, but I've never seen another one. And it's, again, they were hand done and printed only for bookstores. So I digress. But I'm so passionate about nerdy stuff and old stuff. I mean, last thing I'll say, I'm a dungeon master. I'm big into D&D, so I collect also the really old stuff from that. So all these things, I have so many interests, but find something that you're passionate about. Start there. Do with the money that you've got. Get it started. And if you don't know where to start, send me a message on Instagram, Redbeard's Relics. That is where I respond pretty quickly. I can help you get pointed in the right direction. If I don't have it, I know someone who does. And also start doing some research outside of the books. Check us out on YouTube. We have History Round Table. That is, we have full-length episodes, lots of shorts, and we're probably going to answer questions you might have. And you'll also get some cool education about firearms from the period, maps, coins, all that stuff. That is where you're going to get all the stuff you need, because the internet is a wonderful tool, and if you want to come to me, I will give you everything you need for free, to at least to tell you where to go and how to start.
All right, you guys, you heard the man. If you don't already follow Josh, be sure to go right now, go to Instagram, go to @RedbeardsRelics. Give him a follow, and from there, I'm sure you can find links to everything else. Josh, thank you so much for taking the time to share some of your stories. I love everything about what you do. I'm pretty much obsessed at this point, so I think I'm going to be probably chasing after you for a while now, just because I think we need to be best friends. or at least
Absolutely.
like that. So anyway, you guys, thanks so much. This has been Guns and Cameras. Josh, thanks again. You guys have a great evening. Be sure to stick around, check out what we got coming up, because we got a lot of good stuff coming. Thanks again, guys. Have a good night. It's getting a little chilly out. I think we're gonna wrap it up, and I'm gonna go inside and get this episode cut and posted for tomorrow, because yes, you guys, I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball. Like I said, I've been on this work trip. I've been out of town, and it's like right down to the wire trying to get this episode live. So I'm gonna go work on that. While I'm doing that, you guys be sure to go check out @Redbeard's Relics on Instagram. Give him a follow. Go to his website. Check out some of his cool antiques, his wares, and the things that he's got for sale, because there's some cool stuff there, especially if you're a history buff, and especially if you love collecting really rare, cool things from history that are authentic. Super dope. Josh, thank you so much, bro, for being on the podcast. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to hopefully soon shooting some really dope content with you guys. So, you know, something that involves black powder and big hunky cannons and cameras. I think it'd be super dope. Anyway, you guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Stay safe, stay sane. Look out for the crazies. Be sure to stay tuned. We've got a lot of great guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. Thanks for watching Guns and Cameras. Y'all have a good day now.